Welcome to the third episode of the Hali Hewa Podcast with your host, Abigail Kima. This podcast brings together key African players in the climate space to simply share their stories and experiences while they advocate for environmental justice and climate justice. On this episode today, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Cindy Kobe. I will read her bio. Miss Cindy Kobe is a feminist and human rights activist. She hails from the Ogiek Indigenous Community of the Mau Forest in Kenya. She has a background in law and Indigenous people's rights. She's a recent law graduate from Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology and was a 2020 participant at the Global Leadership School for Indigenous Women by FIMI. She's currently pursuing a postgraduate in law at Kenya School of Law to become an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. She's also the chair of the TIRAP Youth Trust. TIRAP means Safe Haven, formerly known as Ogiek Youth Council, where she has been actively promoting the rights of Indigenous peoples, youth, and girls in Kenya. Welcome to the Hali Hewa Podcast, Cindy.
Thank you.
So kindly tell us more about what you do and the inspiration behind it.
Thank you so much, Abigail, for having me today. It's an honor to be the third guest for the Hali Hewa Podcast. And as you said, my name is Cindy Kobe, and I'm an Indigenous person, an Indigenous woman. And I live in the Mau Forest. Mau Forest is our ancestral land. And I'm also the chair of the TIRAP Youth Trust, which was formerly known as Ogiek Youth Council. The TIRAP Youth Trust is an organization made up of Ogiek professionals from the Ogiek community, and we not only work with professionals, but with also other people who are still in school, the school-going girls, the school-going young men and women, and we worked together and we formed the Ogiek Youth Council, which is now known as TIRAP Youth Trust, in December 2019, where we officially had a working session to decide why we are forming this, why is it important to form the Ogiek Youth Council back then, and that is how we came up with the organization. So it is a team effort with all Ogiek members of Ogiek community members from all counties, all the 5 counties. The Ogiek community is in 5 counties. We are in Kericho, we are in Narok, we are in Nakuru, Baringo, not Baringo, sorry, but Uasin-Gishu and Nandi. So we have representatives from all these counties, and our strategic pillars or rather the thematic areas include gender and youth empowerment. We also work around climate justice, and we also work around creating awareness on rights of Indigenous peoples in general. And the inspiration behind everything that I do is because since I was born, I have grown in an environment that is very green. I have grown to see my parents plant trees in the compound in our home, and I've also seen my grandmother transferring this Indigenous knowledge from her generation to my generation. That is the reason. The reason why I do all this is because I want to live the same life that my grandmother lived. She lived in a planet that is very clean. It's peaceful. She used to eat very healthy food, and she used to live in harmony with nature. So I want to continue living in harmony with nature. That is the inspiration behind it.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And you have mentioned that Mau Forest is your ancestral land. And even in geography, when we were growing up and studying all about it, we did study about the Ogiek community and the fact that you've always lived in harmony with nature because you understand the importance of the protection of environment and nature in general. And like any other Indigenous community in the world, I know there are challenges such as land ownership, evictions, and also depletion of natural resources, which I know your community solely depends on for income and for just living in general. So what was it like growing up in Mau, and what would you say is the situation at hand in terms of human rights at the moment in Mau Forest and also the climate crisis? How is it directly affecting your community?
Well, the Ogiek community are victims of historical land injustices. They have been constantly evicted from their lands for as long as I've been alive. Since I was born, I've been seeing the community being evicted out of their lands, their properties being destroyed. I've seen a lot of lives lost for over 20 years now. So this means that it happened even before I was born. So life in Mao right now is not the same as it used to be. If I would take a step back to maybe 2010, there was a lot of peace. There was life was better in the past. We used to be able to have land that is ours now. For now, we call ourselves we are squatters in our own land. We are being evicted from the homes that we have known as homes, where my grandmother used to live. And I have a very good example with my cousin. My cousin lives in the side of Masai Mao, which is in Narok County.
Yeah.
And my auntie and the entire family, they were evicted from this land. And the reason why I'm talking about land is because land rights and climate action are very interlinked.
Yeah.
When you secure the land rights of indigenous peoples, you're securing the climate solutions for the entire planet, because all these solutions are found in nature. All these solutions are nature based, or rather they're locally the solutions that are called locally led solutions are actually the indigenous solutions, because they are found. The people think they identify a problem, they find a solution, and this solution they don't not someone else is not telling them that this is a solution. So just going back to the story of my auntie, she has been evicted from her home. She has lived there since for as long as I can remember, and now she's living in a small piece of land with no she can't even farm. She can't do anything for her family. That's the current situation. And with regards to human rights, there has been a lot of human rights violation. Human rights violation because lives have been lost. There has been a lot of intimidation. There has been a lot of accusations, telling accusations from other people saying that the Ogiek are the people who are destroying the land. And that is not actually the case. We've been living there.
Yeah.
So why would we destroy a home that we've been living there before so many years? And also something else is what people don't understand when it comes to securing indigenous land rights is that we don't want to live in the forest. We want to live in the homes that we have known as homes since the beginning, because obviously we can't go and cut trees, because if it's living in the forest you can't go and cut trees and live there. But we want to continue living in these other places. And on the topic of climate crisis, we are traditional hunters and gatherers, but we no longer practice that. We have adapted to new ways of living, farming. We are now farmers. We are even business people nowadays because of the current situation, and we don't have some of the foods, the traditional foods that we used to eat, and no longer there. We're now dependent on for lack of a better word, the white solutions, because we don't have the natural resources in our lands. We don't have access. We don't have access to water. We don't have access to food. We lack, and this has we lack. When it comes to food and water, we don't have money. There's a lot of poverty as a result, and this especially affects girls and young women. They end up being married off at a very young age. They end up being pregnant at a very young age, and they end up dropping out of school because their parents can't afford taking them to school. And also something else is that since we are squatters in our own land, there are no schools around. We have to travel. Girls have to travel for long distances. They have to travel for long distances to go to school. They have to travel for long distances to go to hospital. They have to travel for long distances to access any form of social services. So those are some of the effects that climate change has had on us. And we have also lost our identity as as a result of all this, because our identity is in nature, our identity is on our lands, and our identities are on everything that is around us. So we're slowly losing our identity, our culture, our languages, and everything in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a sad state of affairs, because you talked about having to diversify into agriculture since you're traditionally hunters and gatherers.
Yeah.
But then again, agriculture on what land, which is also
Exactly.
being taken away from you,
Yeah.
which is quite sad, if I can say that. And I guess for most of us, even here in Kenya, we don't realize just how important this sense of community or identity is for you, because we'll see on the news, oh, more evictions again,
Yeah.
and all of us think there's something political behind it, but we really don't get to see members of the community who are being directly affected by it. Because I know there's encroachment into the forest where people want to practice agriculture and stuff like that. But what is different from your community is that you've been there.
Yeah.
Like that is your home. So you're not really encroaching, but you're just living in your premises. And I feel like there's a lot of external forces that is also putting pressure on your community, and you end up being I don't know what to call it. Like you end up suffering at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I remember when we interacted before, you talked about climate education in your community. And I know a big percentage of us, even within Kenya, are not aware of exactly what is happening. And you did mention something interesting about boda boda riders, that is motorcycle, having music that speaks on climate change while they ferry people around. So tell us more about that, how you compose the music and how it gets to people.
Well, this was a very interesting idea that we discussed with some of my colleagues of the Therapy Trust, and we decided that we need to have a language that speaks to the people, and we need to find we need to draft a language, because we're also losing the Ogiek language. So we decided that we need to compose and produce a song by the Ogiek youth to the Ogiek people. And I will leave the video link so I can
Or you
leave
could
it.
sing.
I could sing it, but I don't want to. I don't want to sing today.
It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not
okay.
quite a singer, but I will sing that. I will leave the video with you so I can leave it at the somewhere.
Okay, sure thing.
And this song is about the forest. This is a song about the indigenous trees in the Mau forest. This song is about what the forest means to us, what it brings us, our home, the importance of protecting the forest, the importance of not cutting trees, and it's written in purely Ogiek language, because the Ogiek language is slowly getting lost, as I had mentioned, and it's getting lost in terms of it's being mixed with other languages like Kalenjin and
Yeah.
Maasai, because we are neighbors. So it is purely in that language, and we have uploaded it on YouTube, and we have disseminated it on our social media platforms for the general public. And we have also, when it comes to the locally, we have also we launched the song at the local community radio station called Sogot FM. Sogot FM is based in Mariashoni. Mariashoni is in Njoro, which is in Mau. It's in Mau basically.
Yeah.
And we launched the song in the local radio station, and we for them to play the music when they are hosting their radio shows. And you have also disseminated it to the boda boda riders, because boda boda riders, it's the local means of transportation there. There's just one there's literally no matatu in Neswit or Mariashoni. Neswit and Mariashoni are locations in those areas next to Mau. Yeah, so we have disseminated them to the boda boda riders, that you know, for a person who has worked with communities, I know the impact that boda boda riders radios has on people, because when the boda boda is passing, just somewhere you can listen to the song.
Yeah.
When it's fairing someone, you can also listen to the song. So that is how we have done it, and we will continue disseminating it. And the song has the song that is on YouTube. It has subtitles, so anyone can understand what is being sung.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and it was also sung by a lady from the community.
Great.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I hope there's translation so we can all get to listen to it, and you've answered that.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that we can also replicate in our communities. I know, particularly Kenya has over 42 tribes, and people relate more to something that is close to them, or rather relate to what is within their community. And we know a lot of the climate change impacts are in the rural area, and it's very hard for us to have conversations in English or Swahili, and people who are at the forefront of the impacts of climate change don't even understand what we are saying. So I genuinely think this is something we can replicate within our communities, and thank you for sharing that.
And you can also translate all these languages into your local languages.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we can use that and translate it to our languages as well. Okay, great. So for the longest time, Indigenous people have been seen as victims rather than agents of environmental protection and conservation of nature, like you said. And you mentioned before that you have traditional knowledge that has been passed down from your grandmother to your mother and then to you. So I believe that is because of your very close-knit culture.
Yeah.
And the reality is that you guys possess great, or rather vast, traditional knowledge on creating solutions for climate change and, protection of nature in general. But then there is a problem because there's no integration of technology and that traditional knowledge. And at COP26, I did see you make an address, I think representing the Indigenous communities globally. And so at COP26, what was it like for you being among other Indigenous communities from across the globe, being that you're also different but also have similar issues and similar messages that you're trying to push for? What was that like for you?
Well, COP26 was my first time at a COP meeting.
Me too.
I remember, and it was quite an amazing experience because we are meeting with other Indigenous people from various parts of the world, and we are harmonizing our message into one message because we are not really different. We come from different parts of the world. That's the only difference that we have. But we all face the same challenges. We are all being discriminated. We are all being, especially Indigenous communities from Africa, we are all being evicted from our lands. We are still not recognized in our territories, in our lands, and territories for the other people who are coming from Brazil, the America, the United States of America. So we are all the same. We are harmonizing our message, and it showed COP26 showed that the Indigenous peoples are working together. They're working in solidarity because there's always power in numbers. There's power in ensuring that we are harmonizing all our issues into one main message. And me presenting at COP26 just showed that Indigenous people are they have a space. The space has been made for them, and they're actually using the space. So I was actually surprised that Indigenous peoples were being given an opportunity to speak at the high level segments, and it was a great honor to be part of this. And I look forward to seeing Indigenous people shining and leading this conversation because they're not only victims, but they're leading. They're leading the change. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I remember at COP, at the entrance, there was always a community singing or doing something, and you could feel it while you enter COP. And I feel like this is also a chance to also have your stories out there, like really share your experiences to the world and make them understand exactly what is happening to you, and also sharing that traditional knowledge of the solutions that we could possibly have in combating climate change. So with the kind of work that you do with TIRAP, Youth Trust, and the rest of your work, what kind of support would you say you need to take your work further or create a more impactful, or rather be more impactful?
To be more impactful, we need more financing for Therapy Trust, and not only for Therapy Trust, but there are very many community-based organizations, very many community based and led organizations which are doing a great work at the ground level, but they do not have the finances to amplify their work and to work with other organizations or to work with other people and to build their capacity on how to improve their work and to also spread the message of the great work that they're doing. So they need financing, they need a platform, they need mentoring, they need other people to join them, because you can't work alone, honestly. You need a lot of people. You need a network, a very not only a network, but a very strong network that supports the work that you're doing, that builds, that mentors the work you're doing, that acknowledges the work that you're doing, and ensures that you are not only just doing the work, but you're impactful. So we need all that kind of support to ensure that we remain impactful and we reach more people.
Yeah.
Because at the moment we're only working in the counties that are inhabited by the Ogiek community, and we wish to work with other indigenous communities like the Maasai of Tanzania, or like the Sengwer, the Yaku. We also have the Ndorois community. Who are also facing the same challenges, but we are unable to coordinate or work together. So those are some of the support that we need.
Great. So how can people reach you, and do you have a website? Is there a way that people can reach you and offer that kind of support?
Yeah, we have a website. It's therapyouth.org. And we also have social media platforms. We are active on Twitter. We also have a Facebook page, and we also have a YouTube channel. All Therapy Youth Trust or the Ogiek Youth Council.
Great. I'll be sure to link that on the podcast platforms.
Yeah, please do.
Great. So we are moving to the very final segment of the podcast, which is the call to action for COP27. So the world is obviously looking at Egypt to deliver solutions for climate change this year. And earlier on, I had a guest who said everyone is calling the COP in Egypt an African COP, and her definition was, it's not that COP is just happening in Africa, but it should be a COP that will have the priorities of the African people represented and acted upon. So as Cindy and as a representative of other indigenous communities, what would you say are your expectations out of COP27? What would you like to see delivered come November in Egypt?
Well, I heard you say that it's going to be an African COP, but I had someone else, I didn't say it, but I had someone else say that it's not actually an African COP, but it's a European COP happening in Africa. Have you heard the same thing?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. And I think the only way we can prove this is in November. November is going to confirm if it is truly an African COP or a European COP in Africa.
Okay, interesting.
But also something else is that Africans should also lead the COP27 negotiations.
Absolutely,
they should ensure that they're on top of the game. They should ensure that they're on top of everything. So the priorities for African indigenous communities is that we don't want just stories. We don't want statements. We acknowledge the statements, but the statements are not as strong if there is no action.
Sure.
So it is time for action. It is time to act now. It is time to commit to actually do what you said you will do in COP26. If you said you're going to give 100 billion to indigenous people, what is the progress?
Yeah.
Have you given any indigenous community or any indigenous organization the 100 million? So we want to see we want to see progress of COP26 commitments. We want to see things on the ground actually happening. We don't want because I noticed that as soon as COP26 ended, we are now planning for COP27.
Yeah.
like almost a month after. We're not even looking at implementing
processing what happened.
things from COP26. Then that shouldn't be the case. So for Indigenous communities, we want COP26 commitments implemented. We want to see action on the ground. We are tired of stories, honestly. We can't keep hearing, we're going to do this for Indigenous people. We're going to ensure that Indigenous people are leading the climate crisis, and they're not only victims, but also leading
creating solutions.
and creating solutions for this. So I would say that that is my call for COP27. Stop just saying we're going to do this and actually do it. And to that, to add to that, I want to see that that land rights for Indigenous people are actually secured, because, as I said, when you secure land rights, you're securing the climate solutions for the planet.
Yeah.
And these solutions will not only benefit Indigenous people, but also everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we have come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for joining us today, and see you on the next episode.